am I good with just taking a paycheck for this job that I'm pouring like my heart and soul and everything into? Or do I want to like have more ownership in it? And I think that, ultimately as artists and creators and people trying to make content, that's really difficult because we need people to fund it. But if the people that are funding it are selling things, like, honey, I can sell things, so let me sell your things.
Hey there, it's Emily Washkovic, Yelp small business expert and the host of this podcast, Behind the Review, where I talk to business owners, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders about things that can help your small business grow. Today's interview is with actress Busy Phillips. You might know her from shows like Freaks and Geeks, or more recently, Cougar Town. But she's also someone who's built an amazing network online, been an influencer to help brands grow, and even invested in some small businesses herself. Today, she shares tons of advice, but the thing I loved most was her unfiltered opinion on how brands should actually reach out to influencers when they want to work together. Let's give our conversation a listen. We are back with Behind the Review. Today we have Busy Phillips. I'm so excited about this conversation. You have such a wealth of knowledge from all of your life experiences, and I'm really excited to dig into some of that today. To kick us off, just tell everyone who you are. I feel like you're known for so many things. So give us the rundown. Who is Busy Phillips and what are you focused on today?
Oh, that's such a big question. Yeah, I have been an actor since I was a teenager in lots of television and movies. People know me from everything from Freaks and Geeks and White Chicks, Dawson's Creek. Oh my gosh, some Cougar Town. Girls Five Eva was sort of the latest thing that I was an actor in. But I'm a writer as well. I have a New York Times bestselling memoir that we were just talking about that came out in 2019. And then I hosted a late night talk show for the E Network for a year, a season. And I currently am the host of a late night talk show for QVC Plus, which is QVC and HSN's streaming platform. And on the side of what sort of we can talk about a lot more, I've really successfully worked with brands for a long time in my career now, sort of more, I would say, in a way that sort of predated a lot of actors and what we would consider influencers now doing brand partnerships. I was doing them very early on to supplement income and also give me freedom in my acting jobs that I didn't feel the pressure that I needed to take as many because I was partnering with brands doing, not just, this is like almost predates Instagram, like doing media days for them and doing like small campaigns that lived online, not even necessarily on my own socials. That was kind of the first round of what now we know as like influencer marketing. But so I've been doing that like very effectively, and in fact, part of the QVC of it all and taking our late night talk show to QVC Plus to their streaming platform was really born out of an idea that had been working on, and which was that I really felt strongly that we could go directly to brands and have them fund the content that we wanted to make for the audience that we wanted to make, who were also, as we know, um, people that want to buy things. So, so that was the idea when I went to QVC with this. Hey, how about this? How about this idea?
I love that. And I feel like all of those opportunities kept coming because you really had built up this follower base that trusted you. And I feel like so much of that was built on authenticity. Do you remember what prompted that big shift to be more open and tell your story in a way that helped people know more about you?
Oh, yeah, I was just bored, Emily. That was it. I was like mostly I was a youngish mom. I was on TV shows. Uh, Instagram stories started and when they launched, one thing that I had immediately gravitated towards in terms of social media, Twitter being the first platform that I was a part of, but then quickly switching over to Instagram and then, the advent of Instagram stories and my sort of ascension as like this person who was known for their sharing their stories and things that happened in my life. um but one of the first things that was interesting to me about it was that in my career as an actor, which I'd been doing, like I said, since I was a teenager, how I was portrayed in the media was always just very dependent on a reporter and also a space that they had allotted for a profile of a young actress like myself, who was typically like on a teen show or whatever. So it's like, these people trying to capture your personality or your ethos or who you are in, a 300 character blurb that accompanies like a pretty photo of you. And I'd always felt very sort of disappointed whenever I would do press and I would read the articles uh that would then be published in these magazines or whatever, and then online publications, like just like it's just missing the mark. It doesn't get who I am at my core and the complexity of me. And I loved being able to really be have a direct line to people who are interested in me and also people who didn't know who I was, um in having my own voice and thoughts and feelings and whatever, and being able to put that directly out to the fans. So that was sort of, I guess, the interest on my part. Um, and then, like I said, I was kind of bored. Um,
But I love that because it relates to small businesses so directly because consumers talk about them, right? And the experiences that they have, but business owners have an opportunity to add to the narrative as well. And you really opening up and showing like behind the scenes before that was even a thing really goes to show that that is effective, you know? And I like what you said about you wanted to highlight the things that were important to you and not rely on other people to decide what they were going to cover. And so I
right.
think
Well, of course. And
that's
then, Emily,
great.
I just want to say, like, the irony in then now what the business has sort of become is that then marketers come in and tell me what I should be doing, the best way to get the message that their brand wants across to my audience. And I'm always like, you guys, okay, but can you just like let me do it? Because and then there are brands that want you to be the agency essentially, and like, so tell us 5 ideas on how you would do this to our audience. And I'm like, well, you're not paying me enough money for that either. So it is super complicated, because I think that brands and marketers are put in like a very tricky position. You're trying to make everyone happy, but when you're dealing with influencers or someone like myself who has had such success with a direct line to their fans and people who follow, there has to be a level of trust if you're going to work with that person. Otherwise, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, you have to inherently know what your own brand is as well, so that you can like pick the best partner and then be able to trust that what they're going to bring to the campaign or to the whatever it is that you're paying them to do is going to be the best version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to dig in a little more on this, being unfiltered online, because that is like so much of your brand now. And I feel like you've inspired so many other people to do that. Do you remember a moment when you realized that was actually unlocking business opportunities as opposed to maybe what some people think, which is like, why are you sharing so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a lot. I had a lot of friends who were also actors at the time, sort of this is like we're talking around 2016. So this is like very early days of the Instagram stories. In fact, I literally posted my first Instagram stories the first day they launched. I remember it. Because I was with friends and I was like, wait, what is this? What's going on? And they like were like, oh, it's Snapchat, but it's Instagram's trying to do Snap. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Okay, are we doing it? Anyway, so yeah, I remember having a lot of friends who were actors, very skeptical of what I was doing and all of the things I was putting out there, thinking that it would somehow prevent me from getting acting jobs or that it would be, a hindrance in ultimately in my career. But like I said, just in my little intro of myself, I had already been working with brands for a couple of years. And I had a really strong branding agent, I still have, still my branding agent, Carol Gall. And she definitely started to get a lot more incoming calls for campaigns and partnerships and opportunities. Um, but then I think it wasn't until, and it was pretty quick that this happened. There was a call from the New Yorker wanting to profile me about my Instagram stories. And and I think that was like a real turning point for me. And in fact, it was early summer 2017. I met with the reporter, Marissa Meltzer wrote the profile. And she became a good friend of mine. And when I sat down with her at the lunch, I said, so I'm just going to put it all out there. Are you doing this to make fun of me? And she was like, what? And I was like, is this a New Yorker thing where you're gonna make fun of me? And she was like, what are you talking about? No. You're you're the person that basically set how this new technology is being used now. Like you did that. And I was like, huh? What are you talking about? She's like, well, every new technology that comes along has like an early adopter who sort of sets the tone for what it should be and what it should look like. And I, you know, it's amazing that that was the credit that she wanted to give to me. And I don't kind of disagree with her. And you do see that a lot of, yes, a lot of people then started to use Instagram stories in trying to very much like be open and authentic and show every part of their lives. Um, I think it's like it has varying degrees of success depending on the person and depending
Of
on
course.
how they choose to do it. But
Totally, totally. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this big transition period after Busy Tonight was canceled and you pivoted, right? You started doing Busy Phillips is doing her best podcast. I mean, that to me was like a
well, right, but
whole
also it's the pandemic. Like that's the
okay,
bigger piece
that's true. That's true.
because
So,
it was yeah.
well, and the angle that I really was kind of looking at it from is just how well you moved on from what some people would consider like a failure, right? Or the end of the show. And I think business owners, they experience these things ending and having to pivot and things just don't always work out the way you think they're going to and the next thing could be even better. So, I just thought maybe you could give some tips on transitioning after disappointment or just kind of how you always go to see what the next opportunity is instead of dwelling on maybe what wrapped or what ended.
Oh, honey, I dwell. Um, please, are you kidding? Um, no, I think that what happened in the immediate aftermath of the Busy Tonight being canceled, um, was that I was just deeply feeling the injustice of the thing, and which is nothing new in this industry, and obviously, again, I've been participating in this industry since I was 19 years old. Um, but we started taking a bunch of meetings in it was canceled in like May of 2019. I think our last show was, I don't know, late May or early, I don't know, early June maybe of 2019. And what happened in the immediate aftermath is that Casey St. Ange, who's my executive producer from Busy Tonight, and now we work together on the QVC show. We started taking meetings with like some new streamers were just happening. It was like at that moment when streaming was kind of taking over, but people weren't sure. There were people taking there was like Quibi was happening. People were like, what's next? What's going to be, is it going to be bite-sized pieces of content? Everyone kind of like had some sort of startup media company that they were trying to launch, and YouTube was really trying to push their legit TV channel or whatever. Um, and so we started taking meetings, and the more meetings we took, the more I was sort of taken by that this system isn't really working for anyone, kind of. And what why do these people get to determine what success looks like for me based on their bottom line, which, by the way, I have nothing to do with. The idea of how do these companies get to decide what success looks like for me, and how do we get to take that power back a little bit as creators and as people, as the forward facing person? Like, am I good with just taking a paycheck for this job that I'm pouring like my heart and soul and everything into, or do I want to like have more ownership in it? And I think that, ultimately, as artists and creators and people trying to make content, that's really difficult because we need people to fund it. But if the people that are funding it are selling things, like, honey, I can sell things, so let me sell your things. So, I remember because we had a big offer from some startup streaming service. We had this big offer on the table, and I just remember I was like, it doesn't feel right. It like makes me feel itchy. And it made me feel like my gut was like, this just isn't it. And I called Casey and was like, here's what just hear me out. I feel like we can go direct to advertisers and get them to fund our talk show. And then we can partner with I don't know, someone. And then get it there, get it out, and it'll be brought to you by whatever. And she was like, okay, okay, yeah, I think I feel that vibe. All right, all right. And so that's what we started working towards in the summer and fall of 2019. And in fact, like, we did a pretty great job. We were like working with Vox Media, and and we were really moving forward with this idea. And we had some pretty big pitches with some huge, sort of like bigger brand people. And that was supposed to be like March 2020. And
So
so
then we
then
know what happened.
we know what happened. Literally, it was like I think our one big huge meeting was like March 16th, 20 it was supposed to be March 16th, 2020 in New York.
Oh my gosh.
And the world shut down. And then
Yeah.
and I was like, all of a sudden I was like a first grade teacher and a sixth grade teacher, and also dealing with like the first time in our lives like a pandemic, and wiping down our groceries with Clorox wipes, and I just like the craziest. That was just a wild time.
It was nuts.
And obviously the company that we were supposed to meet with was like, we're taking like everything's on hold while we figure out what this is and what this means and blah 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 blah. And I think it was in June-ish, maybe. Late June. I think it was late June that Casey was like, oh, for one second we were like, should we just start doing it from my should we start doing a talk show from my house? Should we do that? And we were kind of still talking to Vox. And then Casey's like, oh, I know why. Because we had sold a podcast that the idea of it, we had been recording this whole process of us trying to do this new business venture and selling the show this way and making the show this way, thinking that it would be sort of like, what's the podcast, like Startup or whatever. Is that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we'd been recording this podcast since 2019, since like the beginning of
Cool.
us putting together all this stuff, checking in, doing these different, but then it was like, well, this is all going away. So now what do we do? And we owed this company, like we have 30 episodes we have to do for this company. So we decided to pivot, like hard pivot. We're like, throw it out because we don't even know if it's possible anymore in this moment. And we don't know if it'll ever be possible again because we don't know if we're going to be alive. And so throw it out. But we have to make money. And I think they'd already paid us in advance or something. And why don't we just start a podcast, like straight up podcast about pivoting? And we'll just get some guests. We asked Shantira Jackson, who was one of our writers on Busy Tonight, to be our like co-host. She did it for a couple years and then she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, I understand. It's a lot to do a podcast every week.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but so we did that. That was how we ended up doing the podcast, which is crazy. I mean, like
I love that.
the whole thing was, yeah, was a little bit wild.
Yeah,
Um,
but you just kept looking for what made sense without changing your brand. Like, I think that's really important. You kept focusing on things that mattered to you and brands that you felt good about. And I feel like that kind of takes me into talking about your current situation where you have the QVC talk show and you're like indirect selling, right? It's not like traditional QVC. Can you talk a little bit about how indirect selling has worked? I mean, has it been effective? How's that all going?
well, like anything, it's a new idea. It's a new idea for them. It's kind of a new idea for everyone. When we first took meetings after Busy Tonight was canceled, one of our meetings was at Amazon, and we said to them, what we would like to do is make our entire show shoppable with Amazon products. And at the time, they were a little bit like, we don't, I, we don't know how to do that. We don't want to, like, we don't really know if we want to do that. And I mean, this is, I don't know, 2019, but like we already were trying to do that. We were like, why can't you buy the
Very
sofa?
early on.
I mean,
Very early
very
on.
fucking early on. I said to Casey, I was like, we're never getting credit for the fucking visionaries we are, girl, but like, just let's know that we were. Just let's know that like, it's all
Well,
right.
now
We know.
everyone who listens to Behind the Review is going to know
Sure.
this is
Sure.
Busy 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Uh-huh. 100%.
I love it. I love
But
it.
so yeah, and like I remember we had that meeting with Amazon and we were like, because look, you could have them, especially if we do it, you could have a drop down bar, you could do this, you could do that. They're like, we don't know if we have the resources to invest in that technology right now. Certainly it's something that I'm sure we're looking at in the future, but like that just doesn't, it's just not that's not where we're at. And we're like, okay, I guess not. So the QVC of it all felt like very well timed that they are launching this streaming service and that they are you know looking for ways to permeate different sort of a little bit different demographic, I think. And also um to just change it, I think to change it up. Like, what are other ways of selling and buying? And like, how does that look? And does it work? We would certainly see like you've got like the TikTok. My God, please. The TikTok live shopping now is like a big deal. And I know that I think in China, I think it's like a $400 billion industry or something like that. Um, there's to me no difference between $400 billion, just so you know.
I mean, who really knows the
I'm
difference?
just saying,
You have to have it to know it, I think.
once you're over a billion, I think we're good. Um, but like how does that translate and can it translate? So they were
Yeah.
QVC has been very open to our ideas, and a lot of it is business stuff that like we're not particularly involved in. Do you have the distribution abilities? Is the product available? And occasionally we'll pick something that like they're like, well, we just don't have that. And it's also it's been a little bit tricky to track because We didn't have unique links for the show at the beginning. Like we're just learning as we're going is the actual truth of the
And it does
matter.
require like systems. I mean, that is
Infrastructure.
something. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
there's an infrastructure and like, I might be a fucking visionary, but I didn't go to business school and I don't know how to code, So like I am I am a little bit like we are sort of, beholden to other people in the industry to help guide us through these things. You're only as good as the people that you're working with or surrounded by, and we're all trying to figure it out at the same time. But they've been such incredible partners in that respect because QVC has been very like amenable, open to all the ideas, and really starting, I think, with clothing, the clothing that we're wearing every show was not even, by the way, written into the contract or an obligation. That was a thing that I felt really strongly about, that I wanted everything that we wear to be shoppable. Um, and that I think has worked out really well. I know that there was like a dress that Casey wore that like was sold out immediately. Um, and then when Tina Fey was on the show, we did this really fun like Christmas in July episode because she loves decorating for Christmas. And I had her go through some of the decorations that are available on QVC's website. And there was this sort of slightly terrifying Christmas squirrel that she really had a lot to say about to sell. And but that Christmas squirrel was like sold out, less than a week after that episode aired. So I will say, like, anecdotally speaking, I don't know if at this point the return is fully paying for our show, but I certainly would argue that the marketing alone does pay for it.
Absolutely.
That the amount of, publications and hits in media that we've been able to garner for QVC and different and diversify in terms of like, them getting the bullseye on Entertainment Weekly, like those kinds of things. Like that's a different space that they hadn't, and different conversations that they hadn't been a part of until
Absolutely.
we came along. So, you
Which
know,
is cool. Yeah. And it goes, to show that when you have those ideas, even if you're maybe not the one who can enact them, find people who can support you and get them going. I love that. Okay,
yeah.
let's talk a little bit about how you've evolved from recommending brands to actually investing in brands. I mean, Behave, the candy company.
Yeah, for sure.
How did
Also,
becoming
period underwear.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I knew there was more than just the candy company.
Yeah.
How did becoming an owner or an investor change the way you think about brand partnerships or influence?
Honestly, it didn't. It hasn't. It's the same. It's the same for me, no matter what. It's the
I love
same
that.
if someone's gonna advertise on our podcast, or if we're gonna partner with, or if I'm gonna partner with them for, an Instagram post or whatever, a commercial campaign, or if I'm going to invest in them. And honestly, I would invest in more things. I've got two kids in private school, so like that's a lot for me right now. You know what I mean?
Well, and it takes
I'm just being
time. I mean,
honest.
you're putting effort into this. It's not just, handing over cash. It really is an
Right.
involvement that you have. And you were a fan of these products before you became an investor. What
Yeah.
normally makes you decide to invest? Like, what qualities did those companies have that resonated with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like when I see something that I feel like obviously there's space for it, it should definitely exist. And honestly, a lot of times it comes down to like, is it doing something good in the world? Is that a goal of the founders that they want to do something good in the world? And who are the founders? And what was the impetus behind this? And like, yeah, with Behave, I literally was just like buying it. And then coincidentally, and like this happens a lot too, in my world. And then coincidentally, they had reached out to see if I was familiar with the brand, and my agent brought it to me, and I was like, familiar with the brand? I literally have it in my pantry. I buy it down the street. They're like, what, really? So
It's
that was,
incredible.
I mean, that was like that partnership felt so organic, as people like to say. Period underwear, I'm a big believer in period underwear and their mission. And Carla Welch is a longtime friend, one of the founders of Period is a longtime friend and collaborator. And like, I just that felt like obvious to me. Um, and like, there are other brands that I'm interested in, but like again, I think that it does take a lot to sort of like invest your money and your time and energy into things. And so it all has to line up and make sense. And I don't want to overextend myself ever, where it just feels like I'm like, oh wait, and now she's got a canned wine brand, and now she's got a this, and now she's got a that. And like, I don't know, maybe that's stupid of me. Maybe I could be out there like, I don't know,
You
making a
got a
billion
lot of
dollar a
life left,
billion
busy.
dollars.
There's so many companies that you could still invest in. You've got a lot of time.
Oh no, I know. Well, that's I think I do. Yeah, I actually think I do.
I
I
think
just
it's amazing that I mean, already you've had so many accomplishments in just investing. And that means there's much more to come, especially as people get to know that you want to be involved. I
yeah. I
think
mean, I
that's a
think that
pretty,
also like I think also for me, I think that being a part of the creation of something is probably more interesting to me at this point. So I think I'm kind of like a little reticent because I want to make sure that if and when I decide what I'm gonna do, that there's room for it in my portfolio.
absolutely. You have to leave that room to be able to take on opportunities as they come. What advice would you have for smaller, mid sized business owners that are hoping to win attention from an influencer or an investor? Anything you think they can do to stand out or make that transition smoother?
I think being clear about not just the product you have, but the why is the most important piece, and what space is it taking and why is it necessary? And what good are you doing with it? And there's just so much we have a surplus of shit in this world. So like so yeah, why? Why should we care? Why do we want it and why do we need it? And what good is it to the world? And what good are you going to be to the world?
I love
You
that.
know?
I think that's great. I know we only have a little bit of time, so I do want to get into some of these like review feedback, and then I have like a outro rapid fire question for you. So to start, let's just maybe see any advice that you have about feedback. I feel like as someone who probably gets feedback in all kinds of mediums, you can help my business owners when they sometimes get a critical review or
Mhm.
they see something about themselves. What approach do you kind of have to handling reviews or getting feedback that might
Well, I
be
think that
good guidance?
I really do believe that this is the way to just be a human, is that you have to be open to the fact that maybe this person has a point, and also you have to hold that there are haters and trolls in the world. So it's a little bit tricky. You cannot have your first response that be defensive or overly like attacking back. I think that just is always a bad look. And look, I've
Absolutely.
been guilty of it myself. Occasionally, like you catch someone on a day when they're PMSing and they say something mean to you or about you or something that you do. Like it's hard not to spout off some back at them. But I do think it's a bad look for almost everyone, especially if it's not done with humor at all. Like if it's just nasty, it's not cute. And I do think that sometimes I see brands being too, or small businesses, I would say, you know, when you go viral for being too defensive and too mean back to a person who's just like has I don't know, whatever. We don't know what goes on. We don't know what's going on with this person. And sometimes I just think it's better to like let it lie or to have like great customer service response, which is like, so sorry to hear about that. We'd love to contact you directly to hear more.
That's great advice, and that's exactly what I would recommend they do. So I'm glad you hit on that. As a
Yeah.
consumer yourself, how do you deliver feedback? Do you write reviews? And if so, do you
No.
have like a process of it? No?
I don't write reviews.
Okay,
No,
that's
I don't.
okay. I don't either.
I
I
don't.
can't. But
I
I
can't.
think
Oh, right.
so many consumers don't. So that makes sense. Okay, I have little rapid fire ones.
I do sometimes read reviews though, just FYI.
Okay, maybe you can tell us, like, what do you look for? What do you think stands out
I
when you
look for
read reviews?
specificity.
I
I
love
think
that.
I think that's important. And if you're going to have a review, like if you're going to write a review, I look for like the specificity of the reviewer. Otherwise, I just assume that the business is writing it.
Yes, I love that. You want to know something about the experience that
Yeah.
tells you what's unique
Yeah.
or what was actually happening for them, not a general piece
Yeah.
of insight.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the first thing that you notice about a local business that tells you these people can be trusted? What's something that builds that trust for you in a local brand?
A brand or a business. I mean,
Either one, yeah.
either one, I guess. Well, if it's, are we storefront or are we online? Are we
You can do
virtual?
either. Yelp is honestly, it can span the gamut of businesses. So anything that you think really stands out, maybe it's the way they show up online or how they story tell
Yeah, I
or
mean, I would say like
anything.
it's sort of weirdly almost the same, but it's like cleanliness. So if, when I'm in a store, if I'm in a store or storefront, like the way that it's presented to me is that's the first impression, right? But also when you go to a website, like if it's a messy website that doesn't work, I'm like, get out of here. I'm not doing it. Like your interface needs to be beautiful. Like it needs to be it needs to work. Like it needs to not glitch. Cuz I will just leave, if it's not working.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notifications the next time we drop an episode. And make sure you check out some other episodes that we've already released. You can see some from season 3, and next Tuesday, there'll be another one to check out. Comment below if you have questions about this interview or ideas for a future episode. And if you'd like to be on the show, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email podcasts@yelp.com or EmilyRW@yelp.com. Both come directly to me. And if you're curious about Behave Candy Company or the Period Company, we dropped the website links in the show description. See you next time.